what are you watching?
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2025 found footage anthology film Conjuring Tapes. The film is directed by Robert Livings and Randy Nundahl Jr. and it stars Greg Sestero, Doug Walker, we've got Michael Rock, Dillian Brown, Robert Felster Jr., Samantha Lorente, Hunter Nino, Margaret Lambert. Goes on. Lots and lots of different people in this one. So with this being found footage anthology, what we get here is 4 tapes. And it's a very similar format to the VHS films, I suppose. And you've got, these 2 women basically sorting through some stuff, and they find like these old VHS tapes and they put them on. And they are really, really quite disturbing because the people that's in these VHS is actually them and they've no recollection of it. They don't understand what's going on. And the tapes that they watch are the stories that are told to us. So I'll go through each story briefly just to give you a bit of an outline of them, and I'll give you my thoughts on them, what I thought was the best and weakest sort of thing. So the first tale was essentially a couple going to a dinner party. While they're at the dinner party, he's filming it all sort of thing, and he's saying, hey, I'll tell you what, why don't we do what we did when we were in high school? We'll get a Ouija board and we'll play around with it and stuff. Which is what they do, unfortunately, however. As tends to be the case when you play around with Ouija boards, it goes a little bit wrong, and the evening doesn't end the way they hoped. Decent start to it. I thought this one needed maybe another 5 minutes or so, a little bit longer, just to stir the pot a little bit. It finished a little bit abruptly. A little bit better to get to know the characters a little bit more. But, there were some decent scares thrown in here, and it wasn't a terrible segment or anything. Now, the second one I thought was quite good. It was essentially a guy who kind of does these recordings where he goes and helps people. I was getting the impression, or he thinks he's helping people, or they think he's helping them in regards to hauntings and this, that, and the other. And he's not really, he ain't got a clue. So he turns up to this one particular place where this woman is claiming that her friend is possessed. He turns up there all kitted out with his new gear, and he's got his mate with him who hasn't got a clue what's going on. He's not really used to this sort of thing. They go into this place, and it turns out, that the possession is actually real. So what I liked about this one is it was quite humorous. There's some funny moments in it, this guy turns up with all his new equipment on, and his mate calls him Tech Jesus, which actually made me laugh out loud. I wasn't expecting it. So the humour here was quite fun, and it was one of those tales where it didn't take itself too seriously, and it kind of winked at the audience a little bit. But, it had a couple of decent moments here and there. The third one was probably my least favourite, and it was about a woman, a therapist, basically. She's obviously had some trauma as she lost her son, which she's struggling to get over with. She agrees to take on this client at the behest of her husband. And this basically client claims to be possessed, if you like, by some entity inside. And unfortunately, again, this doesn't end well because it turns out he actually is, and this spirit is in direct contact with her son, which leads to more trauma for her. For me, this one, it was just not long enough. I think a couple of the segments here, in fact, the first 3 segments in particular, in my opinion, could have all done with a little bit more time in the oven. A little bit more time added onto them to let them stretch out and breathe a little bit more. I think you kind of got away with it in the first 2. But again, I think they both could have done with a little bit more time added into them. But definitely the third one, it just ended so abruptly for me that I didn't really get time to process it so much, really. So that was probably my least favourite, the third tale. And the fourth tale was essentially about this cult, the SRO, and this was the longest one. So this one definitely had a lot of time to breathe, and this is the one that was probably my favourite. And the one that I actually thought would have made a very good full-length found footage film. And essentially, you've got this cult, the SRO, that's got this really bad reputation online. Everybody thinks it's a cult and they're kind of doing stupid exorcisms and all this kind of stuff. Terrible reputation they've got. So this documentary film crew have made arrangements with this SRO to go and film, to kind of prove to the world that, you know, it's not a ridiculous cult, and it's not a dangerous cult, and it's not a harmful cult. They get invited there by the SRO, and they take with them a young lady who claims that her brother is being held by this cult against his will, and she wants to kind of go and see if he's still there. She pretends to be one of the crew. They get there, and then they discover, in actual fact, this cult, this SRO, might actually be worse than the reports that they've been hearing. So yeah, this for me was definitely the best one. It was nicely paced, and you get this sense of dread throughout. And then it had like the traditional chaos ending that you get with like a found footage film sort of thing. So this one definitely, I think, had great potential to be a full length found footage film. What I generally get when I watch a found footage anthology film, I look at it and I'm kind of like, I look at the segments and I'm kind of like, which one of these would I think make a great film, you know, full length film? You know, the ones that really pique your interest very, very quickly. And this was the one for me, for sure. So yeah, I mean, this is an accomplished found footage anthology film. I've seen far, far worse than this, and I've seen better than this. But the production values are pretty decent. This is from the same guys that brought us the Christmas tapes that came out a couple of years ago, and it's a review I did on the channel. Again, it was a found footage anthology film, but it was based at Christmas time. But it was a horror one again. I remember quite enjoying that one. I don't remember a huge amount about it. So I've been given the opportunity to review the sequel, if you like, or their follow-up to it. And I think this is probably a little bit better, in my opinion. It's more traditional. It's not themed around anything, really, other than, you know, you could probably theme it around possessions and supernatural, I suppose. There's a lot of the stories that are based on that, clearly. But for me, I thought it did a decent job. I think, you know, make a few tweaks here and there, you know, a little bit more time on some of the stories, you know, flesh them out, make them a little bit more intense here and there. And I think these guys are definitely onto something. So, yeah, I had a pretty good time with this one, guys. And if you like found footage anthologies, then you might want to give this one a check out when it's released. So thanks very much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this review. I'll be back with plenty more content on the channel very, very soon.